You're listening to Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt, your book talk podcast. Join me every Wednesday for real conversations with authors and publishing insiders, where you get to connect with the humans behind the books you love. Let's get on with our show today. Well, hello, my happy people. I am so thrilled to be able to welcome you back to a brand new season of Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt, your book talk podcast. Now, of course, today is February 4th, 2026, and we are kicking off a brand new season for you. We're officially back from hiatus and starting off a new Lovefest with some fantastic authors that I am sure you are going to love. I am genuinely shocked that I'm still doing this 5 years in. This podcast started years ago as just a spoken version of my Whatever Wednesday blog, where I mostly just talked about my own books. And eventually, even I got sick and tired of talking about myself. And I started inviting some of my author friends to come on and tell everyone about their books. And things just kind of exploded from there. Now, you might be wondering, what's going to be new this season? Well, we've already started making changes. We are finally taking a very real step toward turning this from a very expensive hobby into an actual business. You might have noticed new logos, new intro and outro music, and a general low-key rebrand across the board. We're not going too crazy, but the goal is more professional, more streamlined, and a little less your crazy aunt accidentally started a book podcast kind of vibe. Now, one thing that will not change is who this show is for. We're here to introduce readers to new authors and authors to industry professionals who can help them do their job even better. We talk to published authors across the board, indie authors, traditionally published authors, and every hybrid in between. And it doesn't matter whether you have an agent or a representative or not. That doesn't matter to us. What does matter here is that you take the craft seriously. You believe in your work and you're putting in the effort to create quality entertainment for your readers. If that sounds like you, we need to chat. But for today, we are kicking off our Season 5 Lovefest with an author I have wanted to talk to for a long time. We tried to make this happen for last season's finale, but just couldn't sync our calendars. But honestly, I think having her as our season opener for Lovefest is just a much better fit. For one thing, I love chatting with her. I love her work, but I also love how she approaches her writing career with no-nonsense professionalism. If you're an author who dreams about turning your writing hobby into an actual full-time paying career and not just have it as a side project, this is an author you want to listen to. She knows what she's doing, and it shows. So without further blather from me, please welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt, E.K. Johnston. I don't know if you've listened to any of my other shows before, but the way that I always like to start is just to ask my guests to please tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Hello, my name is E.K. Johnston. I am a writer. I write young adult novels, mostly sci-fi fantasy, but every once in a while I drop a contemporary in there to mix it up. And also I do podcasts sometimes, apparently.
And I appreciate that. I was doing a lot of snooping today on your social media, and I noticed that in your bio, you list that you have worked several jobs and have one vocation before becoming a published writer. But what are some of those jobs?
So I worked in a bookstore. I worked in a different bookstore. I worked at a nursing home. I worked at like the only store in a town of 500 people. So it did like everything. I worked at a kitchenware store.
So you have a lot of customer service experience.
Yeah, a lot of retail experience, and then I was also an archaeologist for a while.
Oh, that's cool.
One that was getting paid. I've been an archaeologist for a while, but I've been paid to be an archaeologist.
That's nice. I would love to do that. See, but one thing that we have in common, I worked for a bookstore in the United States for years. That was what I was doing while I was going to college. And I actually loved it. And I think a lot of people who are so into books just love to be surrounded by books.
Yes, I loved the bookstore. I liked it less towards the end because it was getting like less personal, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was getting more
corporate,
capitalistic.
Yeah.
But when I started, and even right up until the last probably year and a half, it was very like laid back, and also the people who were there because they love books.
Hmm.
And the people who shop there because they love books. And then it just got very, very corporate and much less fun.
Yeah. I always tell people, it's like, if you want to find some of the best read people, go talk to people who work in a bookstore.
Yes, an independent bookstore.
Oh, yeah. Now, I was also checking out your Instagram today, and you have quite an eclectic collection of images on there. How do you choose what parts of your life that you want to share with your followers and what you're going to keep private?
Well, lately I've been mostly only posting on Fridays and Saturdays. I delete the app for the rest of the week so that I don't spend time on it because it was just taking up too much time.
Yeah.
So generally what I post are book stuff, book promotion stuff, book announcements, that kind of thing. Occasionally writing stuff. And then things that make me happy, but aren't necessarily like pictures of family or really specific locations because I try to keep that under wraps. So I do a lot of food. I do a lot of rocks when I'm traveling because I like looking at rocks. And I do a lot of books, a lot of other people's books. Basically anything that I think is fun or something that makes me happy, I like posting about because then you can talk about it with people.
Yeah.
And that's always exciting as well.
I tell you, two of the things that really caught my eye, well, three. Okay. You have the needlework. There's lots of cool
Oh,
needlework that you've
yeah.
done on there. And you have Lego sets, and we'll talk about one of those later, and burritos.
Oh, yes. We we do HelloFresh sometimes, and I usually order the like I'm using air quotes Mexican one. And so it's like sometimes it's quesadillas, sometimes it's burritos, sometimes it's taquitos. There was a couple I'd never even heard of because I live in southwestern Ontario and Mexican really just means tacos here.
Yeah.
So every time I order one of those, I try to do it. And then I take a picture because they taste delicious. They're not very like picture friendly. But when we did the quesadillas, my niece and nephew had given me a smash burger press for my birthday, which
Oh,
we have never
nice.
used. We have never used to make burgers, but we have used for quesadillas 3 times.
Well, it's multifunctional.
It's multi.
You have like such a wide variety of books, and within these books, there's so many diverse worlds. How do you approach your world building? Do you have like a set process for this?
Not really. It just sort of comes to me, which is not super helpful for people who are trying to learn how to do it themselves. But I'm very much a go with the flow world builder. And lately, as my career has gotten busier and I've been writing more books at the same time,
Hmm.
I have noticed that I have started doing a lot of my world building in the second draft.
That makes sense.
When my editor starts asking questions and I have to start like really explaining how things work. So a lot of sort of the nitty-gritty details of
Mhm.
my world building actually take place after I have a complete draft. But mostly before that, I have an idea like a building or a spaceship or what have you. Then I sort of build around that until
Mhm.
I have just enough space for my characters to stand on. And then my characters and I go forward from there and I kind of world build as we go. So I don't have these like copious notes or like they can't ever publish like the worlds of E.K. Johnston as a book because, it's mostly in my head, but I don't tend to have like elaborate notes beforehand. I might have like a few things written down, but nothing gigantic.
Well, it does seem like a lot of your stories are character driven. So I would imagine that you build from your characters out.
Yes. Usually I start with either like a picture of what happens at the end of the book,
Mhm.
like a snapshot of the final action scene, or I will have, like, as I said, a place, like a very specific place. And that's kind of where I start from. So with the characters, the main characters tend to come pretty well formed
Mhm.
in terms of who they are and what they're after and all that kind of stuff. And then the real magic kind of happens when the secondary characters start making decisions, because then I find out who the other main characters of the book are going to be,
Yeah.
because you get these secondary characters who are like, I would like a plot, thank you.
Mhm.
And you're like, okay, I guess so. And that's how you get, spin-offs and sequels and stuff, but
Yeah.
also it's how you round out the world.
I know a lot of people always say that they put a little bit of themselves in all their characters. So how much do you actually put into your characters?
I don't know. It really kind of depends on the character, I guess. Usually my characters are a little bit on the reserved side, like
Mhm.
not prudish or anything like that. Like they don't really care, but they tend to be,
Just more introverted?
yeah, they tend to be introverted. They tend to be a little bit quieter. It's not that they're like keeping secrets or like they're ashamed of relationships or anything like that. They just have no interest in being public about it.
Yeah.
So they tend to be reserved in the quiet sense. And they also tend to be agitators in training, I guess, for lack of a better word. They know that things are wrong. They don't know what to do. They're going to make mistakes, but they're going to try to find out how they can help. Except Kira, she's just a monster.
See, there's always got to be one.
Yeah, there's got to be one. She was fun, but she's definitely a monster.
You've written across fantasy, space fantasy, fairy tale retelling, which, by the way, Spindle is on my to be read list. That one sounds really good. Companion novels, and in the Star Wars canon, in Dungeons and Dragons. How do you decide which world you want to write in next?
That one kind of depends on who buys what.
Yeah.
So for the Star Wars and the D&D specifically, those are contracted
Mhm.
positions. So they hire me to write a book and then I write the book for them. So I don't really like wake up one morning and decide I want to write a Star Wars book. That would be nice, but that's not how it works. For the others, it's just kind of what comes next. I'll have a
Mhm.
conversation with my agent about which one of these 15 books should I do next, or a conversation with an editor I've worked with a few times to be like, which one of these would you be the most likely to buy if
Yeah.
they were offered to you? And then we kind of go from there. So I guess the most recent example is Pretty Furious. I had sent Andrew, my editor at Dutton, a list of it was a long list and it was a handwritten letter because I was in the middle of nowhere and didn't have the internet. But I think it was like a page front and back of book ideas that I had. And I was 95% sure he was going to pick Pretty Furious as the one we were going to do next, and then he
Mhm.
did. So you kind of have a feel for it after a while. But I have so many ideas that generally speaking, I just need someone to agree with me or pay me to write
Yeah.
it, and then I'm kind of off to the races.
And speaking of getting paid for these things, it's like in the Star Wars franchise, you got to write Ahsoka. What was it like stepping into such a beloved character? Was that nerve-wracking for you, or just, you looked at it as a job?
I think because she was the first one I did, it was terrifying. I was
Mhm.
like, what if I break Star Wars? Because I knew the character was so beloved. And I also
Mhm.
did, a lot of people really hated her. There's like, she was very polarizing
Yeah.
at the beginning because she was a girl and a kid and, all that kind of stuff and animated.
Hmm.
And so when it came to her, there was such strength of her character, though, as she was portrayed by Ashley Eckstein pretty much exclusively at the time. And so I had Ashley's voice and like the voice of the character sort
Hmm.
of to keep me going, and how she was determined to not succumb to this like darkness or despair like so many of the people in the galaxy were.
Yeah.
And that really helped me keep writing her because she was so determined to do good, which is the both best and worst thing about the Jedi. Best because it's great, worst because it gets them caught every single time.
Yeah.
And that's why we keep writing the stories, I guess, because they keep getting caught.
You actually got to be at a book signing table at the New York Comic Con with Ashley. What was that like getting to
Yes.
meet her?
She was wonderful. She is wonderful. I don't know why I said that in past tense the first time. So she has been magnificent. We got to the end of that book. I think it was in copy edits, and they asked her if she would do the audiobook.
Oh,
And
nice.
they kind of did it as a like, hey, there's gonna be a book. Do you want to do the audiobook? Because she'd never done one before. And she was like, oh, absolutely. Also, like, what are the book tour details? And my publicist was like, I will let you know. And basically, she's the reason we went on tour. So, in addition to recording this award winning, she won an award for it from the ALA audiobook for Ahsoka, she also is the reason we went on tour. So, basically, they just sent me to wherever she was that weekend because she was traveling a lot for work at the time. And we would do one or two events. So, I signed with her in New York, I signed with her in Tampa, I signed with her in Orlando, I signed with her in LA and San Francisco and San Diego. Like we went all over the place. It was wild. So
That's
she
amazing.
has been magnificent throughout the whole time with this book. This will be the 10th year, the 10th anniversary of the book.
Oh, wow.
And she's still its number one fan. Like there's no contest. She is definitely the number one fan and supporter of this novel.
That's amazing. Now, was that your first book to become a number one New York Times best-selling book?
It was. It was. That was surprising and alarming and also amazing.
Yeah.
It was a very strange week. So I remember I was at home because I was about to go to the airport to go back on the road. And I remember lying in bed and I turned my phone off at like 5 to 5 because I didn't want to see any texts until my agent called me because I was like, my agent will call me. I'll be okay. So I sat there and at 5:03, my phone dinged and I knew it was going to be another person in publishing who has like really early access to the
Mhm.
list. And I was like, not looking. I don't want to know. I want to hear it from Josh. And Josh called 2 minutes later. And I was like, wow. And the actual surprise for that one was not so much that it was first on the hardcover list. We were assuming we would list and like hoping for that at that point. The numbers were so good.
Mhm.
But the thing that was impressive for me and the thing that I think really speaks to the commitment of Star Wars fans as readers is that the ebook also listed at number 1 and it was not on sale. It was a full price ebook and it listed at number 1. And all of the other 4 books on the list that week were all $2.99.
Wow.
So it was incredible. I was shocked by that one, I will admit, because it never even crossed my mind that that would happen. So I was really, really pleased. And then it stayed on the list. I think it was number 1 for 3 weeks and then stuck around for like 13 total before it came off. But it was fantastic.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. How did you celebrate that? Because you had to
I
go out and
got it.
celebrate.
I got in the car and drove to the airport because I was going to, I want to say Tampa. No, where was I going? I don't remember where I was going. Wasn't Florida because I'd already been to Florida. I might have been going to San Diego. And the other funny part was that the Blue Jays had just lost the baseball playoffs,
Mhm.
like while I was in the car. So I had to call my family and be like, hey, I know you're all really upset about the Blue Jays, but guess what? And then I spent the night at my sister's house and left my car. So she dropped me off at the airport. And she, like, as I was getting out of the car, she was like, so do we like call you this forever, like New York Times bestselling author? And I was like, yeah, they're gonna write it on my tombstone. But I was standing outside the car at the time, so like several people heard me say that with no context. And I like to imagine they were like, I wonder what that girl's up to. But it was very funny. So it was definitely life changing. And then I got to meet up with Ashley almost immediately because that's who we were doing another event together. So I got to meet up with Ashley immediately and we got to celebrate together. So I had some French fries that I really like in San Diego. They're carne asada fries. I
Oh, okay.
forget the name of the restaurant right now, but they're so good. And I haven't had them since like 2022.
So that definitely counts as a celebration. We'll count that.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
I know this isn't the only book that you have hit the New York Times bestseller list with. And if I remember right, not even the only number 1 book.
Yes.
Does it always feel the same excitement with each subsequent win, or does it start to get a little bit less thrilling every time? She's like, yeah, I've done it.
It's amazing every time. It's amazing every time because it means that there are readers who support you, readers who like you, and week after week. So, like the second 2 Padme books, both listed for a week each, but I think the first one listed for 2 or 3 weeks. And that is also incredible. Just like the fact that it can hang on for an extra week, that is also amazing because it means that like enough people pre-ordered your book, but also enough people went out and bought it afterwards.
Hmm.
So that is also amazing when that happens. Because usually for a book, your second week book sales tank pretty hard because all of your pre-orders count toward that first week.
Yeah.
So everybody who pre-ordered your book counts in the first week. So usually the difference between week 1 and week 2 is pretty steep.
Hmm.
So to have enough sales to still make the list is
Hmm.
incredible. The only list that was a little bit weird was Queen's Peril because that was right after George Floyd had been murdered. And so like nobody was really celebrating anything at that point. And we were
Hmm.
still like my part of Ontario was still in lockdown for pandemic reasons. And so, like, it was just a very strange couple of weeks. So, that one I do not remember fondly
Yeah.
because it was such a torn up time for me, for the world, for publishing, for a lot of people.
Mhm.
But aside from that, it's always this feeling of like, huh, people are reading this thing. I should write another one, which is good.
One of the other big books that you've had going on is Titan of the Stars, and it has developed like a strong following. What inspired that story? And where do you hope that series is going to go? Because I know you have another one coming out in September.
I do. So Titan of the Stars is actually a book packaging IP, which means I was approached with a plot and a couple of characters and the ship itself. And they were like, hey, do you want to write this book? And I was like, here are 14 things I'm going to change. Do you still want me to write this book? And David at Inked Entertainment was like, that means there's going to be two books. And I was like, you're welcome. So it was only one book. The ending was not the ending that I wrote originally. And then I was like, I have an idea for the ending. It will make it a duology. So it is a duology. The second book is called Demon in the Sands. It comes out on September 1st. But the first one was kind of a surprise. I hadn't done a packager book before. I'd done IP for publishers, but I hadn't done an IP from a packaging standpoint where like, so basically for packaging, they come up with the idea and they hire you to write it. So it's called work for hire. It's a lot like working for a franchise,
Mhm.
just on a much smaller scale usually. So I got to sit down with David and figure out what changes I wanted to make. He was super supportive the whole way through. And sometimes that doesn't happen because the people who do book packaging are usually also writers and they can get really attached to
Mhm.
ideas if they were their own ideas. But David was extremely generous. He was like, absolutely, take that, change those characters, change that plot point, like do all this stuff. It was magnificent. And then we wrote up a proposal and then we sold it eventually to Penguin Canada up here in Toronto. And we kind of went from there. And Peter, my editor at Penguin Canada, was very excited to write a space horror. The horror part was like, it was in the proposal, but it was kind of a little bit understated. And he was like, let's make this as much horror as possible. And I was like, I have never done a horror novel before, but sure, why not? So that's kind of how we leaned into it from that point on. And then with Demon in the Sands, I wanted to do a slightly different kind of horror. So Titan of the Stars is very much a like jump scare, things around the corner,
Mhm.
people aren't what they seem kind of horror. And Demon in the Sand is like Ring Race, the Terminator, like a persistence predator that is just never going to stop, and you can't run for long enough to get away from them. So that's the direction I wanted to take with that one, which was also terrifying, but still fun.
I love the description on Amazon of Titan of the Stars that it's Aliens meets Titanic.
Yes, that was the pitch originally. They were like, please write us Aliens, but the Titanic version. And I was like, I can absolutely do the Titanic. I also went through that phase as a teenager.
Oh, yeah. Now we absolutely have to talk about Sky on Fire because that's the main book that we're actually supposed to be talking about. Your main character, Morgan, is brilliant, neurodivergent, asexual science prodigy with no magic in a world that is not like that. What inspired you to make her so different from all of those around her?
I think with Morgan, she always had to be the ultimate outsider. And she had to like being an outsider. She had to not really care that she didn't have friends. She had to kind of enjoy it a little bit without being a sociopath, because I didn't really want to do that. And so for her specifically, I wanted to focus on the academic drive, which a lot of people read as neurodivergence, and that's fine, but she wasn't written that way. So she tends to be very focused. She tends to be very reserved, as I said earlier, and she tends to be very like, just get out of my way and let me do my job. Everything will be better if you just let me do my job. So she has this kind of commitment to her that I really enjoyed writing. The other aspect, of course, is that the character she's drawing from in mythology is Morgan Le Fay. So I
Mhm.
wanted her to have this sort of, not sort of anti-Morgan, because Morgan is usually the villain, and I was like, not on my watch, she isn't. But making her not have magic is also very opposite to what Morgan Le Fay usually is. I
Mhm.
think always. I don't think there's any Morgan Le Fay that's not a witch. I don't think so anyway.
The one thing that I love is how everything that you see about Sky on Fire says that it blends Arthurian legend with the history of North Atlantic fisheries. That is a crazy combination. How did you
It
even
is.
make this connection?
So this connection started with Etherbound. So when I was building Etherbound, I had this idea of a space station. I had the idea of Pent. I had the idea of the Brannick twins. I had this like aging empire and this rebellion that's just been picking away at it for generations. I had all of that and I had no idea what to do with it. And then I was driving home from Newfoundland, which is like 4,000 kilometers. It's not a short drive. And my editor texted me to be like, so is this the most isolated you've ever been
Mhm.
in terms, because I found a copy of that Inevitable Victorian thing or something like that. And I was like, I think technically, yes, like Grand Prairie feels more isolated, but you don't have to swim to get there. So Newfoundland is definitely the furthest away from other stuff we found it. And then I said, when we do it, when we do Newfoundland, it'll be a space station. And then about 15 minutes later, I had to pull off the trip kit highway to write down all the ideas that I had for making it a space station. And it became this sort of chain of Viking islands across the Atlantic Ocean. So all of the space stations are based on Atlantic islands. We started with Newfoundland because that's where I was at the time, but also because it was tremendously impacted by the 1992 collapse of the cod fishery, which is currently slowly coming back. Like it's not ever going to be as big as it was because it was wildly unsustainable,
Hmm.
but like whole towns were depopulated because
Yeah.
people just left. They couldn't sell their houses, they couldn't sell their stuff, they just left because the fish were done and so
Hmm.
were they. And so I wanted to look at what happens to an empire when their main source of food is just gone, which is kind of where the magic and then also fish, space fish in Etherbound and then later Sky on Fire came into play.
Now, Morgan's research has the potential to shake the scavenger empire and draw the interest of the rebels. What made you want to tell a rebellion story through her perspective? And was there any Star Wars influence in that?
There's always going to be Star Wars influence in my stories. I've been a Star Wars fan since I was like 3 years old. Like I don't have memories that don't include Star Wars.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be some Star Wars in my stuff, no matter what it is. But for this one specifically, I wanted to write somebody who wasn't really interested in rebellion. Like she just wants to do her job. Her job's important. People are going to need it, but she doesn't see it as political outside of the politics of the university.
Hmm.
And she really doesn't want it to be because of the family secret that she's got like tucked in there as her like secondary problem. So when the Scavengers try to like hush her up, and the rebels are like, no, we will give you lots of money to continue your research. Please accept our funding. She is not happy because this isn't what she wanted. She just wanted the science. And she kind of realizes that's impossible, that it's always going to, especially something this big, is always going to be impactful.
Hmm.
And so she does end up kind of committing to the rebellion. But then she has a whole different set of problems because she's worried that they only want her for her family secret and for her work, basically. So she's worried that her genetics and her thesis basically are the only two things that they want from her because she can't imagine what else they would be looking for.
Well, just personally, from what I've read, I want her apartment.
Her apartment is great. I was designing that apartment and being like, this is a great apartment.
Yes, it is. When I was sitting there reading that, I'm like, oh my God, I wish this was true. I want this. It's like that would save so much space.
Yes. Yes. And it's space. Like it's a space, it's a sci-fi, so everything just disappears into the wall. Like I don't know how the pneumatics work. It just does.
It's a Star Trek thing,
Yep.
it
Yep.
happens.
It just happens.
Sky on Fire is a companion to the Etherbound, but it stands on its own. And it always seems to be such a tough balancing act to do like a series book, but a standalone. How do you balance the continuity with accessibility for new readers?
I think with Sky on Fire, particularly because it came out 5 years after Etherbound, 4 years after Etherbound, a while after Etherbound, it had to stand on its own for a variety of reasons. Also, I wrote it in 2022 and I edited it in 2024.
Oh,
So I
wow.
had forgotten most of it when I sat down to edit. So I would get to parts and be like, oh, yeah, that was really good. Good job, pass me. And so, with regard to that, I think that helped. Like, I also had some distance from it, which helped me sort of remember what I needed to hope that my readers would remember, which was really only two things, that Pent exists and that Ned exists. So everything else Morgan can kind of figure out on her own as she figures out the rebellion, which is a handy writing trick you can use if you need to tell your audience something, have your character figure it out. So that was kind of how I chose to run with it, was to give her a very independent, like a different place, a different career, a different set of values, and then just to slowly drag her into the rest of the events in the galaxy that the characters are participating in.
Now, do you foresee any more books in this series?
I haven't sold any, but I did have a third one in mind. Last year was my inadvertent cliffhanger year. So Titan of the Stars ends on something of a cliffhanger. And Sky on Fire does have a slightly more open ending, but very much a wait a minute. I feel like there could be more here ending, which is on purpose. Obviously, I always want people to want more books. So The Titan sequel, that one's good. That one comes in September. Another Etherbound book, we might have to wait for. A lot of things would have to happen. Sky on Fire itself almost did not happen. So getting a third one would require some shenanigans.
Well, if I counted right, this one was your 17th book.
Yes.
What was it like to reach a milestone like that? I mean, that's quite a large collection of published works.
It is. It is. I don't know, I guess like you're like, oh, I have a book. Oh, I have two books. Oh, I have three books. And then all of a sudden you're like, where did all these books come from? And I guess it's been 12 years now. So my first book came out in 2014. And that means obviously I've had more than one book every year
Hmm.
on average. But it also, to me, it just represents a lot of work and a lot of commitment from myself, my agent, my editors, but also readers who are willing to follow me to wildly different genres
Hmm.
or to leave something comfortable like the Star Wars universe and try something new.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate people who are able to do that because I think it's fun and I don't want to write the same kind of book forever. So I'm always really pleased when people follow me. And the fact that we've got to do it 17 times with 18 and 19 coming out this year is pretty great.
And now, what was the name of that book? Third Period Comeback?
Yes.
Where does that fall in?
So the third period comeback comes out August 11th, and it is my first middle grade book. So it's a little bit younger, ages 9 to 12, but it was a joy to write. It's an idea that I actually had in 2011. I think I had the idea for it before I had the idea for The Story of Owen, which is my first book.
Hmm.
So it's one of my oldest book ideas, and I just could not figure out how I was going to do the book. And then one day at the gym, I was like, you know what would be funny? If it was a middle grade book instead, because then they can't drive, which solves most of my plot problems. But it also gives me something that I needed to make the magic system work with
Hmm.
them being younger kids. So it's about hockey, it's about family, it's about necromancy, and it's a hockey book that takes place at a cottage in Ontario.
Now seems like the perfect time to do our 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but I'm just too stubborn to give up. Are you
Fair.
ready?
Yes.
And for you, we're doing a special Tolkien themed one.
Okay. This is definitely not going to be quick.
So, question 1. I know you're a fan of Lego and Lord of the Rings. Besides Rivendell, is there any other sets from that franchise that you have or want?
Yes, I have the bag end with Bilbo's birthday party.
Oh, okay, I missed that one.
Yeah, I don't think I get posted very many pictures of that one because it's hard to photograph.
Mm.
And then it had a gift with purchase of Deagle and Smeagol finding the ring while they're fishing, which is really cool because it's like split levels. So like one
Yeah,
of them is in the water and one of them is in the boat above. It's very neat. I
nice.
have a classic Hobbit set of Gollum and the ring, and I have the brick heads of Frodo and Gollum. So I think at any given time there's like 10 rings floating around our house. My nephew put together the Gollum brickheads and he was like, "Oh, and there's another ring in the package so they could both have one." And I'm like, "That's kind of not how it works, but okay." So, yeah, there's a whole plot reason for that, but whatever. So yeah, there's two in that set, there's two in the Gollum set, there's two in the Rivendell set, there's at least two in the Bag End set. Like it's very funny from like a fandom point of view that we have all these versions of the One Ring lying around the house.
I've been really scoping out all your Lego things. We have a lot of that around here. My dream is to make a life-size Chewbacca.
That would be a lot of brown.
Yeah. Just go buy buckets and buckets of brown and start
Yep,
working it out. And I want to have it glued together and stand in the garden.
that would be amazing.
Yeah. That's my dream. So now, question 2. How many books is Richard Armitage in? And will this trend continue?
Okay, so he is in. Okay, so he's definitely in the Padme books because his Star Wars character is in the Padme books. So those ones are kind of a freebie. He has a cameo in the Ahsoka novel unofficially because technically that scene got re-edited, but in my heart, it's still him and Sabe in that scene. His name doesn't change very much, so it's pretty obvious to me anyway. I didn't think I was very subtle. He's in Prairie Fire. He's in That Inevitable Victorian Thing. He's in The Afterword. I don't think he's in Etherbound or Sky on Fire. I don't remember. It's become sort of a cameo of a character that he usually plays now. But yeah, he's definitely in The Afterword, That Inevitable Victorian Thing, and Prairie Fire.
I think that's so great. That's one of those things that Just makes it fun as a reader to see if you see that in the book, you know? Question 3. If there is a land in the Lord of the Rings world where you could vacation, where would you choose?
Always the Shire.
Yeah, that's a safe answer.
Anytime someone's like, if there was a place in a book, I'm like, the answer is the Shire. That's the only answer. Like everywhere else is too dangerous or sad. So yeah, it's the Shire. I love the idea of quiet and food and like easy walks.
Mhm.
Um,
Second
and the
breakfast.
occasional, yeah, second breakfast and the occasional like rager of a birthday party. Like that just
Yeah.
sounds fantastic. Also, the Hobbit calendar is set up so that the same day is the same day of the week every year. So like June 1st is always a Tuesday because the
Mhm.
holidays are separate, removed from the calendar. So it just makes so much sense to me. And I'm like, yes, that's how it should be.
I would say, yeah, it should be that way. Well, now, have you ever been on the Hobbitown tour in New Zealand?
Yes, I have. We went in 2018. It was magnificent.
Somehow I had a feeling that would have been something that you had done at one point because I know you do like to travel.
I do. No, that was amazing. They try to keep it so that they could film a movie there tomorrow if they had to, which just means that the flowers are always incredible, which I was not prepared for. Like I thought I was going to be walking through an old movie set
Hmm.
and that it was going to be nice and like they've maintained it and stuff, but I was unprepared for the flowers. They were everywhere. It was amazing. The scale tricks they use for camera shots are all really neat because you get to like walk past these like tiny hobbit holes that they use for depth perception stuff and then of course the big one, and when they did the Hobbit they had to make things look 50 years younger, so that was also a complicated thing, but generally speaking it was just a really cool place to go and be like, yeah, okay, I believe this happened.
I'm sure that place would be just absolutely gorgeous, but even just New Zealand is
Yeah, New
gorgeous.
Zealand itself is amazing. Even if you don't get to go anywhere else in New Zealand, New Zealand is great.
Yeah. Question 4. If you actually got your hands on the One Ring, would you keep it or destroy it?
I like to think I would destroy it, but statistically, I don't think the odds are that great. It's always hard because everyone's always like, name one person in your fandom who could like not be corrupted by the One Ring. I'm like, there's literally one person in the existence of fiction who would not be corrupted by the One Ring. That's it. There's only one. Everybody would be corrupted by the One Ring. That's its whole job. So yeah, I would probably not destroy it just because it's kind of impossible to destroy it
Hmm.
yourself without intervention. So yeah, I think that that's kind of how it would come down, unfortunately. I don't think anybody would destroy it.
I think for me, I'd just be like, I am too old and tired to walk that far. I'm sorry. I'm not going on this trip.
Yeah, also that.
So now, question 5. This year, we're asking everyone the same question because we're making a list to go in our year-end book buying guide. And your question 5 is, which book series do you think had the best book to movie adaptation?
Matilda, the Danny DeVito one.
Yeah, I had not even thought about that one.
Yeah, it is so wildly not close to the book and without a doubt the best capture of a spirit of a book I've
Hmm.
ever seen, that it is. In my opinion, it's the best one. And like, you have to work really hard if it's a British story and you've turned it into an American story. Like, I don't enjoy that ever, usually.
Yeah,
But Matilda is, without question, my favorite adaptation of anything.
that is a very good answer. Thank you.
No problem.
So now, what is next for you?
Well, I am working on my 2027 YA, which is called The Murder at the End of this book,
Hmm.
about an apprentice time traveler who finds a dead boy in her bathtub and has to help him prevent his murder so that she can solve it, or solve his murder so that she can prevent it. Time travel, so it gets a little murky. I'm working on edits for Demon and Third Period Comeback still, and then after that, I have no idea. I'm kind of hoping to get back to a really big world fantasy. I have a few of those that I would love to work on, but it really depends on who buys what
Yeah.
at this point. And then I have my second middle grade book, which is more of a horror memoir thing. We'll figure it out. It's a work in progress.
And I know you also are available for school talks and you
Yes,
do some editing for people.
I do. Not as much lately because I've been really busy,
Yeah.
but the school visit thing, it used to be really cost prohibitive for a lot of schools because I live in a very isolated area. So by the time I travel, it's like hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Hmm.
But I also have a Zoom rate. So if that's something that your students would be interested in, I can do Zoom visits as well, which is great because I also grew up in a very small town, like very close to the small town I currently live in, actually.
Mhm.
And so, like, we had a small school. We had like four authors come in the entire time that I was in school, and like none of them were fun. So I think it's important that kids get access to that kind of thing, which is why I'm a big fan of the Zoom visits because much less driving.
Yeah.
Also, American schools start really early in the morning, like
Yeah.
really early in the morning. And I'm just like, what?
When I was in school, the only author that I got to meet was when I was in high school, and it was Madeleine L'Engle.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Don't tell me if she wasn't amazing. I just want to pretend that she was amazing.
Oh no, she was.
Okay,
I
good, 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 good.
she's one of the reasons why I thought I could actually be a writer. I mean, she was just fantastic.
I love her so much.
I absolutely think that it is important that children get the access to talk to people who do this kind of thing for a living so that they
Yeah.
can see that it is possible, but also understand how much work goes into it and how much disappointment can happen at the beginning that you have to get
Yeah,
through.
yeah. And I think sometimes people don't think of authors as like real.
Yeah.
Like Rick Riordan. I mean, I've met the man and I'm still not convinced he's real because he's incredible. But like sometimes it's really hard to conceptualize this person who wrote this thing as real, even
Hmm.
if they're, on television or on Twitter or whatever it's called these days, Blue Sky, or that kind of thing, or if it's someone who wrote a classic like Megan Whelan Turner still read books and The Thief won the Newbery like decades ago.
Yeah.
And she's still writing books set in that world because people still love her. And
Hmm.
that I think is magnificent.
Yeah. So I think anybody who's at a school who's wanting to try and encourage their kids to go for creative career avenues, I think that they should definitely check out your page about hiring you for at least a Zoom visit.
Yes. I give practical advice and whimsical artistic advice.
And I was really impressed with how incredibly reasonable your edit rates are.
I did not realize that I was like underpricing myself, but one, they're in American dollars, so it's better
Mhm.
for me all the time anyway. But I also offer a really specific kind of editing.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be useful the way that like a big picture edit or a line edit would be.
Hmm.
It's kind of the last pass editing or really late stage editing that I do, which is mostly to get you over that last hurdle into
Hmm.
querying. So I have done a couple of third books and trilogies that I hadn't read the first book for because the author wanted to know if it like made sense to someone who had no idea what was going on. And I've done a few projects like that. And mostly, though, it's people who are established authors
Hmm.
and they're switching genre or they're trying something new or whatever. And that's who I usually work with. So people are like, your editing rate's really low. I'm like, that's because it's a different kind of edit. Like it's a very, like Liam Neeson, it's a very specific kind of skill. So it's not as bad as it looks. I'm not really like undervaluing myself that much because I do think it's a slightly different kind of edit.
Hmm.
It's important because I have a friend who gets that one. Like when I'm ready to take my manuscript, usually in the like line edit stage, when I'm ready to like take my manuscript and tie it to a rock and throw it in the ocean, I send it to her and she's like, I like this book. I'm like, good, at least one of us does, and then I can get it finished. So that's my goal for that one is like when you hate this book, I will convince you to love it again.
See, and it's always great for people to hear someone like you who is successful in this business, to hear that you have those kinds of moments too.
Frequently.
So now remind all of our listeners who you are and where they can find your work.
I am still E.K. Johnston, and you can find my book at any bookstore, independent preferably, or library. I am on Blue Sky at E.K. Johnston. I'm on Instagram at EK_Johnston. And I'm also on Tumblr at EK Johnston because I enjoy gift sets of shows I don't watch that I can be like, oh, that looks interesting, and then never have time to watch.
And of course, you do have your own website.
I do. I do. I forget about it all the time, but it does exist. It is ekjohnston.ca and it has my contact info and it has stuff about my books. It has any news or events, which I have. It's been pretty quiet lately, so there hasn't been much on that front. But generally speaking, I keep it pretty well updated because otherwise hear the little voice of author and magnificent person Dahlia Adler being like, update your website in the back of my head. So it is updated currently, which is important.
It is definitely easy to tell that you have a sincere passion for this work.
I really do love it. Sometimes I really don't. But One thing that I tell the kids at school visits is that even on its worst day, and there are some pretty bad days, I would rather do this than pretty much anything else. It's fun, it's terrifying, it's really hard sometimes, but it does mean that I get to use my imagination. I get to use my university degree in a way that I didn't really expect to.
Hmm.
And occasionally I get to write off video games as a tax break because it's different kinds of storytelling that I'm learning about for market research.
Nice. I like that. I'm gonna have to remember that
Yeah.
for my taxes this year. One of the things that I remember from, is it at the beginning of Sky and Fire, that you have a quote from Carrie Fisher
Yes.
that I think definitely fits anyone who's wanting to try and be an author.
Yes, both Etherbound and Sky on Fire have Carrie Fisher quotes, which means I can never remember which one has which. But I think Sky on Fire is feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
It's the action that's important, which is one of my favorites of hers. The Etherbound one is take your broken heart and turn it into art, which at the time during the pandemic, I was not doing great. So that was a whole different mindset. But
Mhm.
definitely feel the fear and do it anyway is something I think is important for a lot of people. There's a lot of things that are really challenging, they're really hard, they're new, they're loud, whatever.
But sometimes it's that challenge that makes it worth it.
Yeah, but it's important to acknowledge that too, right? Like, I am terrified of this and I am going to do it
Mhm.
is an important step in the process rather than just like charging blindly in.
Oh, yeah.
So you can kind of prepare yourself, you can get that armor or those preparations or whatever, mentally, physically, I guess, if you have armor, and then go in prepared. And I think for me, that's the important part of the quote is like feel the fear and then do it anyway,
Mhm.
is be ready. Like in acknowledging the fear, you make yourself ready.
I cannot thank you enough. This has been amazing. You were an incredible interview.
Thank you.
And I have to tell you, I am waiting breathlessly for your next Lego flower.
I've been looking at them and I'm like, I haven't liked any of them in a while. I'm just like, oh no, what am I going to build from Lego? Although I did buy the extremely expensive aquarium when I finished. I drafted 3 books last year, so I bought myself the aquarium as like a
Oh,
you drafted 3 books this year present. I don't know when I'm going to get to put it together because it's gigantic. It's going to take me a while, but I'm super excited about
okay. I'm going to be watching your Instagram for that.
it.
Seriously, I want to see that.
It'll show up there eventually.
This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for this. I know we tried to get you in for our season finale last year and we just could not sync schedules. And so
Yep.
we moved you to the season opener. And so I am so glad we were able to do this. You are a fun person to talk to.
Thank you very much. I enjoy talking, it turns out. Yeah, public speaking, terrifying. Talking to one person at a time, not that bad.
Yeah. So there you have it, folks. My amazing interview with the inspiring E.K. Johnston. I hope to follow her lead in a few aspects of my own writing career in the near future, but right now you should check out the description of today's podcast, where you will find links to her social media and her books. I'm confident that most readers will find something to their liking in her impressive variety of published works. Now, a quick reminder, as we kick off season 5, we are still accepting applications for future guests on this podcast. If you're a published author who takes the craft seriously and believes in your work you're putting out into the world, we would love to hear from you. So go to burkhartbooks.com/podcast and you will find the application form to fill out to be part of Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt. Coming up next week in episode 209 is John Newton, science fiction author and YouTuber. We will be talking about his award-winning novel, The Healing Stone, book 1 in the Shadow of Time series. His work explores big questions like, what would you do with a stone that can heal anything? What happens when time travelers lose their tools? And how identity and time collide. John is also an electrical engineer, robotics programmer, landlord, part-time farmer, and more. And yet, somehow, in between all of that, he still finds time to write. We also nerded out hard on quantum theory during his interview, so if that's your thing, you will not want to miss our chat. And also, I would really like to ask, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it with your fellow readers, and leave a review somewhere. Those things genuinely help us to bring you great authors and great conversations. If you want to support our efforts a little bit more, you can go to burkhartbooks.com/podcast and find links to buy a copy of our online magazine, Book Banter Magazine, or buy us a coffee to help us keep the lights on, as it were. But you know what? I think that's going to be it for today, my happy people. I'm so excited that season 5 is finally here. But for now, it's that time. It's time for you all to go forth and be really happy that season 5 is finally here, and we have so many more great authors coming up this season just for you. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe to Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt on your favorite podcast streaming service. Because if you love books like we do, you do not want to miss a single episode of this podcast.